The deeper and deeper I go, I find what it is I should know. 'Cause it's just a matter of time that you'll reawaken your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what is true. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine. Come to know and find out what is truth, yes. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine.
Happy Holy Day, Moors. Welcome to House of Reawakening Minds. House of Reawakening Minds exists to provide for the exploration and practice of spirituality in an enlightened community dedicated to honoring the myriad of sacred pathways to the universal creator. We are an awakening center for spiritual grounding, free thought, self-discovery, and more science, a learning experience for all ages. Tonight, our National Grand Sheik, Taj Tarik Bey, and I are pleased to present into Caetera Divina, another boring conversation explaining today's U.S. politics. You know, in these days, 2019, 2024, and beyond, Davina, that can be viewed as a password for invoking signals for coded conversations among social and political agents and contractor operatives and operations at North America and abroad, while not invoking alarms among a known to be naive and alluring occupied and natural peoples. Question: are the psychic powers of illusion still potent enough to maintain color of law dominion over the natural peoples of the land? Let's talk.
Yep, let's talk. Islam, Dr. J.
Islam,
Good to see you again.
Good to be seen.
All right. And as soon as I came in, you rewarded me with some grape and blueberry pure juice.
Absolutely.
Those of you have emails, we're gonna email you.
Yes, y'all. It's all gone. Y'all saw me last Tuesday. After
I cut your hair.
He started it on after the last broadcast.
First, I cut your hair off.
Mostly on
and
Friday.
And then you got to cut again.
And then I got the rest of it cut off. So y'all, so all right. Hope y'all still love me. If you don't, I love you anyway. Listen, on a serious note, before we get into the broadcast, I received a call today. And it was very disturbing. I asked the individual, well, actually, Empress called me, Empress Wisdom Shield Ill, to let me know that one of our Moorish sons had transitioned suddenly this morning. Brother Mark Fields Bey, father of two beautiful little girls,
babies.
Under 2, I believe they are, because one was born this year, and then the other one they had at our last conference before, so she may be about 2, and in his 40s. And so we just want you all to keep his consort, Sister Valara,
family-in-law,
and their family in prayer. This brother's in his 40s, his fitness instructor, very health conscious, will call me all the time. I got texts in here, Mama G, just checking to see how you're doing. They just had their, matrimony. Wisdom Shield, Interest Wisdom Shield came up from Florida, Land of Flowers, to Virginia to do that on July 6th. And so we are, my heart is aching for the brother, but Allah knows all things.
Yes.
So we just want to, lift them up and keep her, keep her.
And those of you who are local in the area, make sure you reach out to the family.
They're in the DMV in the Virginia DMV, and that was not what I was expecting to hear. I said to her, I don't want any bad news, because she normally finds out when folk are saying jinky stuff about us and
Mhm.
whatever. And I said, it's about me. She's, no, about Grand Sheik, no. But when she told me what it was, I would have rather it have been because somebody said something about us than to hear that that one of my sons had transitioned. One of my, you know, so my heart goes out to the family, his consort, the babies, and the, you know, the extended family. So
yes.
Those of you, some of you may know Brother Mark Fields Bay, because I know he was thirsty for knowledge. So he would be on the different, you know, outlets and, you know, the different classes and so forth.
Yes.
So some of you may be aware of him. So with that.
Anyway.
Yes, though. But
anyway, Islam.
Assalamu
alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Vadimekum.
Vadimekum.
Bon abort.
Bon abort.
You know, Dr. G, you know, as you was saying to me a little earlier, you know, about the Doctrine of Discovery. And of course, you already know those who are up on the geopolitics and a lot of what's happening around the planet with the nations in the both reconstruction, reset, realignments that are happening, the dumping of the U.S. Treasury bonds, and the interesting thing that one of the reasons why we want to talk about Caetera Divina is because we want to aid the brothers and sisters who are becoming conscious. The youth, you know, the youth are becoming more and more conscious. Most of the people that have been operative in the qualified conscious community are already aware of these things. However, we trust to find it useful to bring them up to snuff so that they we can reduce their learning curve time or comprehending the political platforms that are operative on the planet. And the interesting thing that I want to remind us all is that while the people may look at the things that we deal with every day socially, politically, and economically as current events, we have to remind our people that that's not the way government works, although that's the way we've been trained to think.
Right.
And one of the things that has allowed a lot of the corruption to be so steadfast and locked in, even while people are complaining about it, because they often are under the impression that when they discover some of these corruptions, that they are currently arriving.
Right.
You know, and that comes from the psychosis or the psychology that different people are coming in and they're saying one thing and doing another, and then another one comes in to office and things like that with the intentions of fixing it. And of course, that's a recurring cycle, but they need to understand that that is the geopolitical training, or what you call maintaining management of the theater. And even though we sometimes get involved in it, we have to remember not to be distracted by it, knowing that it's all theater, because their playbook is unum sanctum, inter Caetera Divina, dum diversus, Romanus Pontifex, and of course collectively in Sister QV Act 1666, and collectively known as Doctrine of Discovery. And of course, because those who know the real politics apply that in their thought processes, they don't necessarily talk about it publicly because they want to keep the public in the mentality that that's past tense. You know, when they talk about the Magna Carta, Treaty of the Forest, which goes with the Magna Carta, that they don't teach. That's another subject matter, important, another subject matter. And they look at the Constantine operations of what is tagged as the Christian Crusades, but no, it's the Constantinian Crusades. You know, it's sort of like, though it's boring and redundant, even when the people are looking at the political foundations of what brings us to where we are today. They're still saying casually Christian crusades, and that's been promoted through history. However, those who are operative know that that's the Niceno-Constantinopolitan crusades in history, written as the Christian crusades. That's the Constantine order. Now, and a lot of times when we're talking like this, a lot of times while we bring up these little that appear to be subtleties, which are really the real truths, by our people being controlled by the assumed impression of what they think these things are, that molds their mind on what they make their judgments by. The whole psychosis of as soon as you say the word Christian, the assumption is the derivative culture and customs from the Ibri, i.e., of course, now the Ibri is covered up with Jew, but so they think their concept, this comes from Judaism, in that concept, and so the concepts that most people have who really aren't looking at these things as social political war operations are bent to the mentality that this has to do with religious worship. Of course, it never did, but that's the narrative, and we have to recognize, and we want the people to recognize, it's not an attack on whatever
Your
belief that anyone has adopted or attached themselves to.
I think we're dealing with, as they say, facts over feelings.
Yes.
And a lot of times people, are very emotional over the things that, like you said, belief systems. So
yes.
What we're talking about, I don't know about you, but you've been in, at least in Islam, you've been in Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
You've been a part of Islam.
Mm-hmm.
I've been, heavily into Christianity,
Mm-hmm.
Went to school and got a doctorate degree and all that, pastored. So yeah. But nevertheless, when truth comes in, if you are open to, if you're not so close-minded to any of the things that you have been indoctrinated in,
Mm-hmm.
you have an opening for the possibility that you may have to change your perspective on things. But most people are not there.
Mm-hmm.
People are getting there.
Yeah. Now, and while that's really fact for the times right now, that's the reality. And almost anyone who's being observant can recognize that. Not whether or not, and I'm not projecting that we should put energy in it necessarily, or change what we're doing to address that, but it is to for people to really comprehend that where they're now being distracted with the U.S. Unum Sanctum election.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and they may be looking at this as current events, right? It is and it isn't. The people that are closely involved are, when you understand the real geopolitics, what they're in right now is a struggle to preserve the long-standing operations of the Doctrine of Discovery, as you were saying downstairs.
Mm-hmm.
Into Caetera Divina, and you were making that direct tie.
Right.
And that's because you have knowledge of it. Now, some people hear these things, but they don't make that tie. Now, when you're able to make that tie, even though you're going about your everyday affairs, you will subconsciously adjust your life and be always diligent and alert to adjust, because you already know it's operative in your everyday political venues, even though the masses through their education system think it's past history
and separated.
Yes, which is part of what the sleep is. When they say the masses are asleep,
mm-hmm.
and you must keep them asleep. And often people will look at things, some look at it literal, but and some look at it esoterically. But even when they're looking at it esoterically, many don't follow up and try to examine component parts of what that sleep is. You know, not unlike, you know, when the masses know, quote unquote, they'll say, because of training, the system is broken and doesn't work for us, right? Right. So one who understands the system knows the system is not broken and it's working just fine. Now,
right, because that's one of the things that Mama Lena said early on when I was making this transition from pastoring to so forth. She said, what is the purpose of a system? And I don't know, the purpose really of a system is to fulfill the mission of the creator of the system. So no, it's not broken. That's why it's not broken, because it was designed
to do exactly
what it's doing and has been doing. And that is the unfortunate part, that we have been, you know, part of an illusion.
And this is back, yes. And this is back to people not understanding how governments that they've been looking at, how they actually work. Now, even when they're doing a little bit of research, but you particularly, like say one who's going into business, as an example, will skirt across that existing political concept only as footnotes within their studies of contract law or business law or marketing, for the purpose of understanding they're dealing with demographics. And they're more focused on what they think in their mind, you know, the goal is an LLC or some corporate entity that they're attaching to the system, not even recognizing while that's going on, the very function of what they're doing is clearly feudal law, and mentally thinking that they're operating in a democracy.
Now, even the term feudal, what has interested me to no end is that when I got into, you know, studying more science and studying, you know, like from Black's law, to hear the, you know, things like a contract, you know, something that's contrary, feudal law, meaning you're feuding, is it there's something's against something else. You kind of hear it in the terms that
and
they
don't
use,
see
and don't
what you're hearing.
Right.
In other words, because these are, it goes about every day in what we consider everyday business. It becomes normalized, even if you're a thinker, because these things are just said loosely. Right. And so when, as the people are beginning to look at, they're threatened now, because it's a threat and then not a threat, according to what they comprehend and what side of the venue they're on. So they're threatened. You'll see a lot of people concerned with so-called the banks are closing and their accounts and the things that are happening, or they're putting out seeds to the people of certain banks closing, certain things happening with certain credit cards, caps being put on credits, even with people that are used to moving with credit, who are considered to have in the forum good credit,
Black card status.
And so yes, and so even people who are used to that level of dealing are threatened in the operation, to the point that they're starting to pay attention to these things. Then you're looking at like, for instance, one of the major figures, operatives in the stock market, like Warren Buffett, as an example, right? And Elon Musk as an example. And people are noticing how, as an example, Warren Buffett is dumping a lot of stock, which we were talking about last year, right? You know, as a warning to the people to pay attention, because that's telling you a lot what's coming, right? And then, of course, with people recognizing, who even had or were used to dealing with good credit, find it more difficult now to do ordinary things, as it's not simple, but as simple as getting a new car, as an example. They're loaning, the loans system is people find themselves being locked out, even people who were used to doing it as a normal, every couple of years they do the thing.
Are you talking about Nick?
No. I'm talking in general.
Okay.
So look, because remember, we've been talking about Stellantis and then selling the Chrysler building because all is still related, right? Now, and so they're looking at things like that, but most people, it never dawns on them that that's operative into Caetera Divina.
It's built in.
It's an absolute tributary operation. Now, if you are talking to, say, people calling you, which they often do, and they have certain social or process problems, most of the concepts, and even with people are so-called conscious, it never dawns on them that this is operative right now. That because the names are changed, in order to keep the smoke screen. So they're not thinking in their mind Rex 84. They're not thinking in their mind 11490. They're not thinking in their mind the 2 executive orders what Roosevelt did. They're not thinking even like what Nixon did in 70 and 71, and what they're calling now the petrodollar, and even what they're calling the dumping, that all of those are connections of the very same thing. The knowledge of the management is preserved among themselves. They call themselves the elite, right? Another word for that is God, Now, so the deal of it is we see these things and we sometimes hear these things. However, most people, if you would beseech them to give a little bit of insight on it, most of the time they would go into their emotional feelings about candidates personally and who likes who and who proved that they don't like the best, and debate. And the conscious person don't even entertain a little bit of that, less more a lot of it, right? Because they know that it's theater. Not only they know that it's theater, they also know, if you watch different things that they said, right, or say, where they are in the larger chessboard. And so when you're looking at the chessboard, you're not looking at well, when Obama was in office and things like that. You're looking absolutely Obama, Nixon, Roosevelt, Wilson, and you're looking at them as if it's current events. No different like when they're doing charts, like say if they're dealing with what you would call your contractions, right? Bull, right? And bear market. And then they'll take from year to year what they would call the contractions, bubbles, stuff like that, right? They're looking the same way they look at them charts. It's the same way they do the charts and operations. Is they just don't make it public, but they do it for the preservation of the imitation nation. In other words, they've been calling it a corporate operations nation. So they'll say national security. That's a cover for unum sanctum operations. So the average person doesn't dawn on them that these people aren't the nation. They're corporate operatives pretending to be the nation, no different than you're thinking differently when you know that the United States is not a country, it's a private corporation run from Davos, Switzerland, i.e. registered in Austria, with the court system run from Fleet Street, England, Circle Church and Chancery, right? With the operatives for the movements of finances in the international venue coming from a colony place that they call today Israel, that is the direct outpost of the operatives of both, not London, City of London, and Washington, D.C., all together. on a constant to see that inter Caetera Divina is carried out all over the world. And the politics is for the public, the general public, not to become aware of that or to be aware of their thinking processes. This is why whenever the people try to figure out what politicians are thinking or on what they say, and our people start cross-examining and critiquing them, it never really makes sense. It never really makes sense, because if you start examining the narrative, rather than recognizing your own ignorance, the people start thinking it's something wrong with them. And they allow that to be that. See, because that's part of the safety. See, it's sort of like when the people think that the politicians are vulnerable, that makes them think that they have some power. Mm-hmm. So that so that allows the politicians to say, we're fighting for our democracy, or even with a few of them that understand the coup operations of 61 will say, oh, this is really the republic, Nasara and Gassara and stuff like that. That's the narrative presented for those who are a little bit more weak. Mm-hmm. However, it's still a narrative that ain't going to happen for them while they're in power. Do you understand? However, it's the promise of, or the implication that they're going to honor their obligations. So that lets you know that they're buying time.
Well, do you think, if for the sake of those who may not be familiar with the inter Caetera Divina, that we should maybe share what?
Yeah, well, just deal with the, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so just to give a little bit of what we're talking about. So, and this is from well, did you put this together? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, okay. You guys shake one of this down.
That's an old lesson.
Yeah, lesson book. And no, I don't have it, y'all. Don't like you always want to get it. Davina is a password used by most European colonist descendants who have overthrown, settled, or occupied other lands or countries. Davina, in most instances, appears unthreatening to the unknowing ear when Europeans find cause to refer to their pseudo-religious doctrine, which is politically and socially inculcated with terse policies and regulatory constructs. However, it must be noted and brought to the attention of all Aboriginal natural peoples that Davina, quote unquote, was and is used as a war reference and control guide point for colonial Inquisition operations in North America. The formal name of the Divina doctrine of Christianity is Inter Caetera Divina. Its origin is from Pope Alexander the Sixth, one of many iconic social, political, religious representative vicars, which, what are they supposed to be? The substitute Christ, dedicated to policies for world dominance. And I want to interject, which is not here, in my reading of the secret history of the Jesuits, to find out the role of Ignatius Loyola and his band of merry men, called the popes, monks, whatever they were, that helped to foster a lot of these things, and even to interject what they actually should be.
Because they're preserving, so now, and that's really beautiful, intellectually. You recognize the correlations and likeness because it is still the doctrine.
Right.
In other words, generationally, they're doing what? They're preserving, managing, and making small necessary adjustments to preserve the original intent
of world dominance,
which is the mission, meaning that whatever adjustments must be made, this is the guidebook, meaning that this is preserved century by scores, by score blocks. And our people would think that because you and I are in the physical form at this time, this is our time mentality, not knowing that the people who are governing your affairs, which includes the priesthood and the bench of the Pope, and the benches of the Pope, you already know, is the bank.
Mhm.
Now, you know, the masses don't know that the banks are bench of the Pope.
Okay.
But when you know that, even though you may be forced to deal with them, you deal with them with a different mentality and intent of when you're handling your business, knowing and never forgetting you're under occupation. And your usage or involvement with them is by what? Coercion, and you know it. And you never forget it.
Yeah, once you know, but
And
you can't do,
you
you don't want to do some of the things that you have to do in dealing with them, knowing that it puts you, it contractually binds you to things that you don't want to.
now, via the occupation, you're conscious, but you also don't have a choice because
Yeah.
they're stepping on your free will,
Right.
which is what occupation is.
Somebody
Wisdom.
in there said, "What's under occupation mean?"
Oh, occupation, or to keep it in simple words, is like if somebody come into your house or kill off a few of the heads of your family and then put everyone in subjugation, then start charging you to live in your own house, then call your house their house, then start creating a business model, whereas you can't do business except in the nom de guerre. The nom de guerre would be the names or the brands that they create for you. Then they create subdivisional agencies in order to deal with your energy outputs. Like, for instance, in North America, as an example, what are the two major platforms that they created to control the social energies of the Asiatics here, right? Christian Black Codes, i.e., NACP, i.e., Bureau of Indian Affairs, and all of them are designed to control or create artificial jurisdictions that kind of, it's not normalized, but allows by strict controls and regulations Aboriginal people to operate, to think, and to encourage them to think that they have political power to exercise just normal living, and also designed for them to forget that they're under occupation or colonial exploitation. In other words, what you have is, and what you recognize on it from a political perspective and reality, the political venues of occupation is absolute feudal parasiticism. They're not going to call it that. Our people who look at some of the symptoms will call it exploitation. Now, if you look at exploitation etymologically, you'll also recognize within the synonyms, you'll find vampire and vampirism, because this is exactly what it is. Politically, politically, the art of management and the logistics of the demographics is to keep the people under the mentality that they have social problems that, quote unquote, the agencies are working on to solve. And they make minor adjustments back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, generation after generation, because they know that the people who are under animal husbandry training have a very short attention span. They already know it. They're not going to say that, but they know that. So they already know they'll do something to the people, as an example today, socially, economically, knowing that they're not going to honor it, but they'll have the people arguing about fixing it or honoring it for a whole year or two, and then they'll put someone else up, good cop, bad cop, is called, that controlled opposition, who's going to promise to fix what they promised to fix when your grandmom was here. Same old thing. And they already know the people have a short attention span, and they'll get passionately involved in trying to vote for somebody to do what was supposed to be done before. And while they're going through all these dynamics, never paying attention to the obligations that these people have in the alleged offices, nor ever reading their limited delegated authority, all of which they've abandoned, and they've been actually enforcing into Caetera Divina
instead of the Constitution.
Right. And they'll mention the Constitution only once in a while to pacify the people who never. This is why even say a child who doesn't have skin in the game in their mind, right? Will say in school, be doing a pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. You know, this is the training, and to the republic for which it stands, and then go right home and their parents will tell them this is democracy. So I'm raising you to go into the service to fight to preserve democracy because that's your freedom. And they don't have freedom.
You don't have a choice.
Never experienced it. Never experienced freedom, right? And they got 5 or 6 organizations fighting for freedom, and even though it's absolute clear contradiction, the same management can present so-called liberation arguments to them generation after generation after generation, election after election after election, and they will participate desperately, hoping to get what was promised to them to people that's long been buried. And even while they're going through these dynamics, people that even address these things honestly, just like we're talking right now, right? On the show, you already know that we still don't have freedom of speech, because you already know if we even talk more details, even within the Caetera Divina as an example, you know, and I already know that what they're going to do, they're going to start shadow banning the venue. And yet people will still sit up there and talk about they're fighting for freedom. And really not understanding the experience. Their whole experience is feudal law. And you tell them it's feudal law, and they'll start debating with you. Right. Because they believe, even though we're battling, and even though we're still marching and praying, we still got to work to preserve our democracy. And because people are getting conscious, in which we've been saying for years, right? We've been saying, they're going to enforce Nasara and Gasara, right? Now, that's their put out to kind of bring us back in to rebuild some faith because people are waking up. Right. But they're never really going to carry it out. However, you always pay attention to what they're doing, because it also lets you know where they are on the board, if you get the point. But knowing that they will never honor it. However, it doesn't mean they're not going to talk about it.
But just because they will never honor it, right, does not negate the fact that it can be done. It's just that most of those that could do it don't realize we have the power within ourselves.
Now, isn't that back to us?
Again, yeah.
Now, let's go before they start talking about that.
Yeah, okay.
Now, when Jwali, as an example, interjection, set up the old Canaanite temple, right? And then as the people evolved, he registered as a civic organization, and then he adjusted the name to Moorish Holy Temple of Science. And at the very heart of the movement and the divine warning by the prophet to the nation, the very heart of the political side of the Moorish movement is enforcing that constitution. So it's not like it hasn't been addressed. I'm just supporting what you just said. But I'm also saying, even in conjunction with that, you'll see a lot of people who've been a part of that movement for years will be some of the first people that will fight against anyone just enforcing that constitution, or even talks about it as if it's contrary to the movement. Now, but when you understand that, when you don't get caught up personally, you already know what to look for. So you already know who operatives are by what they do and say, distinguished from, being emotionally charged. And because that's my cousin, and he means well, and he's just having a disagreement. No, you already know that's a contractor-operative. You won't necessarily argue with them, but you understand that all of us in the greater scheme of things are small pieces of the puzzle, and that they're always going to by operations, have or put people in place, meaning that, say, for instance, you get door-to-door people here over the house as example, right? And you're teaching, just like you're having teach come this like, right?
Mm-hmm.
That grow. It's not coming, it always is. They will have an interjection there. Now, what you want to do is keep your mind focused and get some work out of it. But you already know you're not going to get 6 solid months or something like that, not because a lack of enthusiasm of the people, because the system is already set up. You will be infiltrated. They'll send somebody in. They'll love you. Oh, Dr. G, I just came here to help you, Dr. G, and smiling at you, and you not doubt them, and their mission is to undermine.
Okay.
And it will be, not may, it will be done. Now,
It
when you
has
understand,
been done.
when you understand Inter Caetera Divina, you're not, meaning that if you understand the game, you're not broadsided and then get all stressed out because you know it's part of the war.
Right.
And so you don't, how could they possibly, we're doing good for the community, and why would, you can say that, but you wouldn't say that. That would be someone who doesn't really understand what's going on, or really don't understand. They're warring on you for real. It's not an opinion. And it's just that because so many people are wearing masks, people still don't believe.
Isn't this the proper? They're
not like us.
They're not like us.
And then they keep saying, "Well, we Americans."
Yeah.
They're not. They're not.
You know, look,
Yeah.
little interjection. So I had to I got a new insurance, healthcare insurance, right, with retirement insurance, and I had to get a new primary care physician who, because my primary care didn't take the insurance that I have now. And so, you know, they send you this electronic stuff that you have to fill out. And I don't know if y'all know, when you go to get lab stuff, if you go, or different things, they have you fill out this, and they ask you your ethnicity, nationality. You know, they have the so
Everything.
on this electronic, when it went down to, I think, nationality or whatever, some part of it, there was a whole list, and I scanned down the list, and get more was on there.
Well, they
no. That's the first time I've ever seen a list that broad that included more for your option. Not that you didn't have to write it in.
Now remember in
or
law,
type it in.
Yeah. Now remember in law, this is how they do. Even when they have what you call fixed contractual documentation, they will have, even when they have short form, they will have other. So they already know that people who understand jurisprudence knows that that's the remedy door. Because remember, whenever they're creating, because you're dealing with both international law and you're dealing with fundamental jurisprudence, fundamental. So whenever, and it's not unlike Teach would tell you, or anybody knows jurisprudence, he says whenever they create a law, even though it may be colored, right? They must always, they may codify it and bury it, but they must put remedy. Now, you recognize it because you're conscious.
Because most people wouldn't even look beyond the black,
now,
Negro black.
I'm going to say it again.
But I was looking, no, that's not
but
me.
I'm just saying, I'm going to say it again. You're conscious. And so you're observing things that been in a lot of venues.
May have.
We never paid attention. Why? Because we didn't associate identity. Because remember, the people been groomed under nom de guerre. So once they see what they're expecting to see, they stop.
Right. You're right.
You know,
that.
and but from their position, from the operative position, right? We're just taking care of business, right? What are they looking at? They're looking at, we have a Dun and Bradstreet number. We have a surety bond. We have liabilities, limited liabilities, nationally and internationally. And so we don't want to give these people something to come with us in the future. Why? Because fraud has no statute of limitation. However, we must protect the order by giving the appearance of benefit while extracting them. That's the art of war in the political realm. And so through that operation, the people must be trained to maintain faith in the system, because the fifth system is the straw by which we extract essence from the Gelfins.
All right, Dr. Crystal. But listen, I'm sitting here thinking, and my brain is short. My thought, I'll
just talk because it'll come out.
No, it's coming out. I was sitting here thinking while you were talking in terms of, bringing somebody on board to do something for you that you are either incapable of or unwilling.
You want to stay here?
Just stuck it there. Unwilling to do. It's not there for any reason. Unwilling to do yourself. Hence, we're talking about how did they gain this foothold to say, hey, we're going to take care of these things for you guys, you the people of the land.
It's called an offer.
You're the Aboriginal. It's just like somebody coming to the house of Real Awakening Mind and say, Dr. G,
we're here to help you.
We're here to help you. We can do this, and we can take that out of your hands, and we can do this, and we can do that. Is that what happened? I mean, was it like, and then all of a sudden
the norm,
it was a takeover?
Yes. Now, and it's part of it, because remember, all of this begins before what is known as the United States.
Right.
And this is back to people needing to know the history or the geopolitics. Okay. Because remember, the control narrative is the hybrid Europeans came over here running away from a religious oppression, coming to the Western Hemisphere to find freedom and acceptance, blah, 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 blah. But everything they did was unum sanctum enforcement.
But this was after, Isabella and Ferdinand had sent allegedly whoever came over, and then let's discovering the land.
So now what we must do is add a little bit of the missing information, so that the people's concepts will be correct.
Please.
Right? When Bo Abdil ceded the Alhambra because of the wars of the Vandals, and
in other words, gave it up.
Yeah, rather than them murder, even though they did murder a lot of women and children, which they promised not to do. That's where April Fool comes in. Okay. Now you already know where they burnt the women and the children on them ships.
On the ships.
That's April Fool, April 2nd. That's April Fool.
Oh, right? Wasn't the first?
First and second was actually a couple days, but that's the day they picked. April 1st, April Fool. Now, that's what that's about. And yet a lot of people here, as an example, know about April Fool, culturally here in the Western Hemisphere, but in their mind, it doesn't relate to that was a massacre of Moorish women and children who were promised by the hybrid Europeans that they would let them go back to America or go back to the Maghreb or other parts of the empire, because it was an ongoing war. And on that premise, Bo Abdil ceded. That was one of the kind of what you call war treaties type thing. And so when Bo Abdil ceded, right, that's where you get the issue of January 1st, or what they refer to, what the Europeans here in the West refer to New Year's. All right. So that's adjustment of the calendar. That's really, which is a political act, not dealing with Cosmo.
Right.
Now, people who don't know the history don't relate this way, but that's the real history.
Is that why, again, the names of the months are off in a crazy
that's
way?
Why,
you got September,
which is 7,
but it's 9.
Yeah, Nova is not. That.
Right.
In other words, now
Octo 8, it would just be August, but that's October. Yeah. So everything is crazy. Yeah.
Hold on now, and then Augustus, Rome, that's August.
Okay.
Yeah. But all of this is political, and when you start looking at how the world is run through the calendar and system, it's telling you Moorish history. But people who don't understand it think that Moorish history is conjoined with Moorish tribes that came over here type thing, and all of that's fiction. If you understand, in other words, any scholar that studies anthropology in what you call any of the ancient and modern and contemporary world, the evolution of the political venues around the world, provinces and nation states, they don't go into what most people would think, well, just human history. They go into Moorish history. So when you're studying Moorish history, you're really studying world history, even though that's not said. Now, when you understand that, you know why the people here, particularly in the Western Hemisphere, are so, above all others, targeted. That it's strange to them when they're looking at people around the world and they're saying, well, they're just as dark as me and I'm lighter than them. And they're looking at that perspective, and that's allowed to be, but that's not what it is. It's who you really are. And because the world is not supposed to know the real human condition. Because remember this, once you, and that you is plural, if you are allowed to overcome the US, the unum sanctum.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when they're saying they'll use the abbreviation, and according to the context, politically, it's in your face, but those who are in the political realm knows in certain contexts where they'll put the American people, quote, then another paragraph, America, then they'll say US. You look at that differently than the average person in their mind who keep thinking that's all the same, because that's the training, right? So like if they're talking to you coded, right? Knights of Malta or something like that, and they're talking about sanctioning some nation, right? They'll say America, and then probably they'll say US. That's unum sanctum, right? And knowing that people think it means United States, right? And then they'll also code it like this, like at DAR, of which Hillary's a part, right? They'll put a small u and then an S, capital. So then we know that's the political venue with the superseding treaty and ordinance of 1787 venue of republic law and treaty obligations. Now, then you'll see in another part, they'll put US all capitals. Now, so that means, well, yes, but we're unum sanctum, meaning that don't forget
who we really are, what we can, our purpose, our mission.
And so our people are in the mix, right? But we're confused because we don't know when they're talking, because we don't know the codes. This is the reason why, like for instance, like from their position, it's important for them to maintain the secret societies in order to be able to do what is called public venues or public conversations that are still private, right? And this is not unlike our people, as a rule, not necessarily recognizing when someone from another jurisdiction is trying to help, and we reject them.
Right.
Think because they're not American, quote unquote, oh, they're alien, or we recognize nationality then, oh, they're from another nation, they're not us type thing. And while we are protecting the brand systems, and then thinking because we have a contract of sale that supersedes our capacity of status, and it doesn't, never does. And it's so not unlike most of our people, and this includes some of your modern contemporary, even Europeans, right? Where because of the effort that they put in it, still believe that they own real estate. And then if you ask them, well, you're familiar with real estate? Yeah. Well, you familiar with real property? Well, yeah, that's real estate. It is and it isn't. Because if you're dealing with real estate, you're not owning anything here. If you're talking about more what you call or fee simple type control, that's all. Now you're dealing with real property, right? And so people hear both of those terms, but the average person will operate their whole life dealing real estate, thinking that they're really dealing with property trades. Now, of course, that's promoted because they're not supposed to know that's a feudal operation. And so as people are waking up now, right? And they're losing the grip, not like they used to. So they're putting out things like, what do you all people think about owning nothing?
Controlling everything.
Right? And people saying, they're trying to institute another con game on the people, right? Of owning nothing, right? Right? But people haven't owned anything for the last century. They don't even know that the property tax is a feudal tribute. And it's unconstitutional. Right?
Well, some would say that, the taxes are those types of taxes are necessary for things like roads and refuse collection and upkeep of the,
Now, all right. Now, I'm going to take your rings and take them from you by force and sell them because, it's necessary for me to go to the buffet. And it's necessary for me to get new sneaks every year. And it's necessary for me to get another hat. This one's getting old. And I need a Gucci hat, and it's necessary. Now, does that make it right that I'm taking that from you?
No.
All right. Property tax is unlawful. That's feudal law. Constitution law forbids tax on personal property. How come the people won't enforce that?
Because they don't know they can.
It's there. But what I'm saying is the law that these people are obligated to, it's not like it's an idea.
But here's the deal. When the ones that do know and they do follow,
they attack them.
Not only that, but some are successful because they actually do know, these laws. And when they go stand before them, they're not, misinformed. And there's nothing they can say. They might want to whisk them out the back door or out real
which
quick,
they often do.
So that they don't spread this like what?
All right.
People
so what
sitting in
now?
The peanut gallery were like, what did they do? What did they
now think? Look at this. Now, point that I'm making to you, Dr. J. That's not supposed to be the abnormal. That's the norm.
Right. It should be.
Yeah. No. It's obligated to be.
Right.
Right. The masses will defend the politicians that are taxing them and make those statements that by training. See, it sounds logical because of the training. Right.
Mm-hmm.
If you bring it down to very small talk, it's easy to understand. But because people get caught in the jargon and in the connotative linguistics, they themselves will make statements that actually push them back into jurisdiction while they not even understand that they themselves are going back into the pits with what you call a contract with the devil. But they don't know they're dealing with devils. Right? And they don't know that they're contracts. Right? And that they're enforcing these contracts on that's why they do deception, because they're actually using the contracts. That whether it's an oral, and this back to right, oral, assumed, and actual, and fictional construct. Right? So, like for instance, they'll put somebody out there and say, "Oh, Dr. J, aren't you in love with Wayne? And Wayne, aren't you in love with Dr. G? And wouldn't you like to get married and just come to us and sign this contract so we can give you permission to supersede nature and contract with us, third-party interloper, superior to the contract, and you're the other triad, and I have first claim on your estate, including the eggs in the womb and stuff like that. And then they start talking about Jesus, God, and Allah, and the beauty of the matrimony of the Bible of goodness. And people go sign that contract, don't know that they've signed their life away, right? So Pope Rome, through the bishopric, through the enforcers, which would be called gangs of New York, which common people know as police, right? Fraternal Order Police, gangs of New York, in contract with the United States Corporation Company to enforce the law for the corporation. Any Supreme Court case to the contrary will show you that. It's not that that's totally hidden, right? Bust in your house, take their children that you think is your children, literally physically harm you for resisting, and you'd be talking about what your rights are and what is fair, what's moral, and I voted for, and we're talking about our people in general. And mentally, they don't even understand these are feudal operations, that they're feudal serfs. They themselves got a marriage certificate, birth certificate, social security, and credit cards, and think that these are normal operations of economics. And all of them are dealing with feudal transfers of a serf to a feudal lord. They give them all kinds of names, and the feudal lord is made through Caetera Divina operatives, right? So in order to preserve these operations where people don't start getting moral and blowing the system, right? Number one, they have, whether you call them Knights of Malta. So all presidents are Knights of Malta, all of them, for the corporation, right? Even if they're Columbus and White Camellia or Odd Fellows, right? Grange, Kyklos, etc. They're all different forms of what the people loosely refer to as masonry forms, right? However, they must be reminded. And then when one is, lets the moral side override your obligations, that's what happens to people like Kennedy. And what's the other couple of the other ones that they neutralize?
Well, they try to.
That's what happened to the Mason, Martin Luther King, when he started talking about our people are what? Refugees in their own land. That's a Masonic secret. They're not supposed, because remember the narrative is that they were brought here on a good ship, Jesus, 1555, and that they were mistreated because of their color. So, and then Cristoforo Colombo was a Jew who sailed from, just like what's the other guy who sailed from Cadiz, the Moorish city Cadiz, the one before him, to test the astro maps of the Moors who traveled the seas, which is why they even call docking Moor. That's why they call it, because they are
the seafarer.
Yes. Yeah. In other words, the whole ancient world, is Moorish history. Right. And so people are trained to that the Moorish paradigm began with Ferdinand and Isabella merging their kingdoms of Aragon and Castile after they defeated the Moors. And that gave them open gate to come through the gates of man and the gates of God to the Western Hemisphere, home of the Moors, i.e. the Colombo is more of a military operation than a man, but a man is promoted. Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue.
1492.
Yeah, 1492. Yeah. Now, and then 1493, all of this, these bullets come.
Or bulletin is like
just like Bulletino, like the Bulletino of the Pope. Even when they talk the Bulletino of undoing this, that's why that's called Bulletino. So the Bulletino is actually script, but the bulla is a script for the world conquest. So when people are looking at the politics now, right, most of the people here, particularly the Aboriginal people, they're not thinking in their mind Punic Wars. They're not thinking in their minds Hasdrubal and Hannibal Barca Bay. They're not thinking in their mind Battle of Poitiers, near Poitiers, France, Battle of Tours. Politicians have all of this as a standard. They're trained. This is why it's important for all of them to belong to. That's why, for instance, like they can play these games with people who don't understand geopolitics. But if you got, what's it, the sister's name, Waters?
Maxine.
Yeah. I guarantee you, without saying anything further, she's an Eastern Star. Or
Is she still living? Did she die?
Yeah. No, was anybody in position of powers is got to have some knowledge. Mm-hmm. They ain't going to hold that position. Our people will be looking at this from some emotional view of what they think these things are or are not. No, if you're governing anything here,
you got to be in with it.
You will. Why? Because they will protect the order. And when you step outside the order, they will disappear you. They will usually set up a narrative, to pass so they don't want the people to rebel. But you'll be leaving the position one way or another. And it's a guarantee.
Now, many of them stay there for years, and I didn't understand why they don't have term limits for them, but yet they have them for presidents and mayors and governors.
And that would be called what? Protection of that. Another name that they call it now, and it mostly comes from Europeans that started telling some of the history because the middle class is being dissolved, and they start exposing some of that. Their term for it will be deep state.
Okay.
So deep state is really the shadow hand.
And they need to keep certain.
That will be, doesn't matter who, because we know, those who know that the president position is about 17 steps down.
Below who was ever at the top.
About 17 steps down, right? What else do they know? If you're looking at surface, right? Guarantee, this is guarantee. Name any senator or any congressman or congresswoman operating at the United States. Do a little research. This is a guarantee. They have one main one, sometimes two or three, but there's one main one that makes a determination, right? That are their handler, and they have a dual citizenship to West Asia. That's renamed in the reconstructed history Israel. And it's a handler for every last one of them. And they run the United States Corporation Company for the operatives at the City of London, not London, City of London, i.e., and the Circle Church and Chancery. And everybody and their dog knows it in politics. But the people that are sitting around arguing about what their opinion is of Trump or Biden or Kamala Harris, etc., it's all theater.
Yeah, I had met. I don't know if I told you I met a couple of brothers today, and we were talking at the farmers market outside about health things. Like more so CMOS, this, that, the other. Real great conversation. And at the very end of the conversation, because we were talking about, nobody under 60 could get in this conversation. It was one of those, and so I got ready to leave, and the brother pointed to me and said, Kamala, pointed to me, and I said, what? He said, you are voting for her, right? I said, no, absolutely not. Well, the conversation, the air, the energy went 180. And they were trying both to convince me of how great she is for us and what she's going to do and what Trump ain't going to do and all this. I said, I'm sorry. You can't. I said, let's go back to talking about CMOS. I said, we was good at CMOS and stuff. I said, because this right here, we're not going to like each other by the time this is over. Right. And it's just that kind of energy.
That's controlled narrative. And what you already know what? what is that? It's controlled opposition, and it's called the social narrative to protect the feudal operations. So they have the people fighting among themselves. They create enemies, whether it's the party, and it's all artificial, or other nations,
Right.
and tell you who to hate. Matter of fact, let's look at this. I'll show you an example of Davina operations. Whether it's Kamala or Trump, as an example, right? They'll be talking about China, and they'll talk about Russia and India and what they're doing to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, China, largest national population, right? Right? For trade and political operations, they have about 2 bases. And one of them, I think, is in Nigeria, but about 2 bases around the world. United States Corporation Company, right?
Mm-hmm.
Got close to 900 military bases in countries around the world. And the narrative will be, look what China's doing to us.
Right.
They're colonizing Africa now that Asia and Africa is starting to unite, right, and do business. The old Silk Road, ancient, before colonial operations, that people think is something new.
Right.
They're renewing ancient trade routes that existed for thousands, not hundreds, thousands of years that were interrupted after Europeans conquered the Moors. The rest of the world start falling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, people keep forgetting about the Balfour operations, don't they?
Yeah, I'm not even sure what that is myself.
That's where they were dividing up the Moorish Empire. That's what made these different nation states, particularly after the Second World War. That creates the political paradigm we're dealing with right now, and also created the fakery of Israel.
Yeah. Wow.
Right. And so all the Bretton Woods operations with the monetary system here. All of these things are connected.
Mm-hmm.
Now, no different than if you're looking at Knights of Columbus operations, right? So when people, even our people today, right, even when they're talking history at North America, right,
Mm-hmm.
their mind of what they think is the United States, they're looking at that thing that look like Turtle Island, right? Right?
Mm-hmm.
With Florida sticking down, right? But in that same time, 02 and 03, United States was only up to the Appalachian Mountains. But in their mind, in the mind of the people,
they had it all.
Even we're talking contemporary. This is how disconnected the people really are to real history. So all the rest, 2/3 of it was controlled by Spain. Even like when you seen Empress Ghostin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Verdiasi Eel, right? When she was making claim, because remember her mother before they killed her mom off and the rest of her family, her mother had directed her to different museums in different areas to start collecting information because they scattered information to make the claim. And then when she made the claim, of course, you already know, that's dealing with what? New Orleans. And then you have the crescent and the star upside down. That's why you got the crescent and star upside down in New Orleans, in the God.
Okay.
Now, again, you remember, I'm putting things together so you can look at the politics. Remember when Gaddafi, before they murdered him and stole his gold, right? Unum sanctum. Remember Minister Farrakhan had left and he was trying to help us here. And he offered him some finance,
right,
to help the people here. As soon as he went, the Khazarians put a hit on him, right? They didn't succeed, but I'm just saying, all right? Now, Khazarians is these people claim to be Jews that most of our people don't know really run the United States. Because remember, the concept in the people's minds here who don't understand unum sanctum politics are in their mind that their vote counts Forget the Electoral College. They don't even know that.
Right.
But they're still convinced, are you voting for that lady? You know, that type of thing. Right. But they're sophisticated and they know God too. And they're saved. Yeah, and don't know why the world has no respect for these people. Because they have the minds of minors, even in the face of information. But the deal of it is, when Farrakhan came back, they rerouted him. He didn't come through New York, the harbor, which normally he would. He came through New Orleans area, through the Gulf, under Empress. And he can tell the rest, they don't talk about it, but I'm telling you what I know. And a nationality card was involved. And he came through New Orleans area, coming back in through, i.e., the Dugdamunya, mound builders, aboriginals of the land, Moors. Now, that's a whole political forum and area that can spark a lot of conversation. But that's for them to talk about, if you get the point. However, I'm telling you, when you understand the geopolitics, I know what I'm looking at, right? Now, and even as I'm saying this, it would probably spark interest with a lot of people because they don't hear stuff like this, right? And they may want to know more, but that's for them to talk about.
Right, right.
But I'm saying to you, things aren't what people think they are. It's still an operation. If he came through New York,
the Empire State.
If they came, they would have what? Neutralized him. Mm-hmm. But he was protected. Now, and he also wasn't under black codes. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. And then later on, as you know, he was raised in the lodge and he got a Moorish fez too. Just like a lot of others do. Now, so a lot of things that was unpopular that Il Malik found out that made him unpopular, others found out too, but it's not what they thought it was. You understand? Mm-hmm. And you notice that when he came back, almost all of his conversations are civic nature now. You don't hear him talking about no religion and the concepts that the people have been used to. All of his addresses are almost 99% civic in character. Well, you know, I understand it.
The part, the part about, the woo-woo part of religion is interesting in this question, but they're claiming that Pope Francis allegedly recently said that all religions lead to God, which, if you know,
it's a loaded, empty statement, but sounds like he said something.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you're not telling anybody awake who knows it does anyway.
But it's almost like you're saying, it's like almost like someone saying, you know what they're trying to do? They're trying to preserve the last vestige of the dogmatic concept of religion, with implying that they're leaving the dogmatic perspective and being, quote unquote, inclusive, when the real deal is just another step to maintain control. No different than, like what I've been saying for years over here, they're pushing the people into CBDCs, mm-hmm. right? And then people who don't understand the geopolitics start buying into the different platforms that the NSA set up, the different people that in their garage created a digital currency and now it's separate, and all of that stuff was set, and NSA got the back door to all of them, and they created it. No different than they have people thinking that what's this guy with Facebook, what's his name?
Zuckerberg.
Thinking that he did that was a CIA operation. Mm-hmm. They'll people still fall for the game. But what I'm saying to you, all of it is into Caetera Divina. Now, start off where you left, and then go into this so that people can understand what they're dealing with.
Okay, so reading about the Caetera Divina.
Yeah.
The shortened form Davina is often used for this church bulla of 1493 because Europeans in America know that the ignorant and misdirected natural persons whom they have held to quote unquote brands and forced servitude are likely to assume that they are speaking of quote unquote divine providence or about some commonly propagated aspects implying harmonious worship. Naive believers think the colonists are giving testimonial supports to their unlettered preconceptions of God. The Germanic form or word got, G-O-T-T, guth, G-U-T-H, good, G-U-D, and God was introduced, which means all of them are the same, was introduced to the world during the Middle Ages, which is a period of European history that divides ancient and modern times, being 500 AD to 1450 AD. The naive converts among the Aboriginals who have naively accepted their teachings are deceived by the propagated beliefs that the Christians were embracing ideals of a universal creator or supreme being, overflowing with teachings of filial and universal love, etc. Little did the conversios know that in reality, Davina, from the European colonial conquest mindset, is an institutionalized religious war-sanctioned tool justifying genocide, rape, theft, sadistic human oppression, land thefts, usurpation, and birthright thefts, etc., etc., etc. A lack of knowledge about true world history, law, and culture is a dangerous social anomaly for the Aboriginals. Truth be told is that the word Davina or Davina does not mean holy goodness, as subtly implied in Christendom propagation and amongst the naive converts to the Nicene Creed. What Davina actually means to the Gaul Christian tribesmen and knights is, quote, a patriarch or patron in support of the Niceno-Constantino Palatino Creed conquest agenda, whose ecumenical purpose is to culminate with Christendom ruling the world. So
continue to read so they can get concept of what these are different components of what's operative.
Okay, so the Constantinian agenda is a consolidated mission embodying conquest desires and intentions that colludes a span that colludes a span of centuries. View the nature and character of the Davina agenda with an in-depth study of the past world history unto the present. As examples, research the following. A, the Punic Wars. See Hannibal Barca Bay. B, the Christian Crusades. C, the Battle of Tours, 1732 near Poitiers, France. Charles Martel, the Hammer. D, the Spanish Inquisition, the Inquisition against the Moors. E, the constant wars against Haiti and other Caribbean islanders. F, the rebellion of 1511 and Church Bull of 1511, Border King, Puerto Rico, and Florida. G, the Trail of Tears, Aboriginal territories. H, the fraud of the Louisiana Purchase, 1803, etc., stealing Aboriginal Moorish land and territories. I, battles on Lake Erie and Lake Michigan, see Baton Ram, etc. J, the Christian Black Codes of 1724 AD and relative Black Codes of the states. K, the Willie Lynch mental warfare strategies. L, the bombings at Tulsa, Oklahoma, June 1st, 1921, so-called Black Wall Street. M, the King Alfred Plan, Executive Order 11490 and Rex 84, etc., etc.
Right. Now, so when they're looking at these political operations and the timelines, they look at any one of them as what you would call contemporary history activities, and the latter not tied to the earlier. But all of that would be still unum sanctum and inter Caetera Divina. Now, for the political operatives, they have their sabbaticals and their constant pledges and training. If you notice that every time that they have an election, what is one of the first things that is done by a praetor for the United States? What is one of the first things they do ritually? They make a pledge to Israel. They don't even hide it. Then look at this, right? What's happening in your major cities right now? Economically, aren't they going bankrupt even though they're not making it public? If you're looking at your general, what they call mainstream news, they're not telling you that Chicago, Philadelphia, Boston, New York, and as a corporate state, California, are all going bankrupt. Will they?
I haven't heard that.
No, in mainstream, I'm just telling you because they are, but I'm just telling you in mainstream news, they won't tell you that.
No.
Right? However, they are. Right? Now, remember I said to you when we talked years ago, and of course we talked the last time we were together, and I said, pay attention to Deutsche Bank.
Oh, yeah.
We've talked, we've talked even extensively, not on air with just our regular conversation, right? What's happening in Florida right now relative to the housing and tagged by condos? What are they doing? They're forcing the people through regulation and taxation out of all the condos to the point that a large percentage of them are being condemned. They're buying them out and then offering them pennies on the note. They take it or leave it, and they're flooding them too at the same time with a HARP. They're killing the housing market. Same thing's happening in California. So what are they doing now also to accelerate the operations? They're forcing people to get GPS in their cars, and they're going to tax them for every mile that they travel in California. That's what's on the books right now. That's what they're starting right now.
Wow, that's crazy.
No, what they're doing, they're encroaching because no one's buying the treasury bonds, which we've been talking about here at the House of Reawakening Minds for the last 10 years. In other words, you're seeing the response that's taking place. What else is happening, as an example, with Japan, right? And what's happening with Germany, right? Now, Germany is the major economy in Europe, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And the major head in Europe relative to NATO, correct? What's happening with Volkswagen and BMW? As an example, two of their major industries and auto. They're moving most of their operations to North America, some to China. What's happening? Their industrial base is being dismantled. So what does that tell you that's going to happen here? That it's happening in front of the people's faces, but they're distracted with other things. I mean, it's going on. It's findable. It's important. Yet in mainstream, no one's talking. I mean, we talk it all the time.
Right.
But no one's talking. But it doesn't matter if they don't talk, because very shortly it's going to manifest so harshly that they're not going to be able to ignore it. They'll try to spin it and they can't spin it.
We're talking
right?
about
So this is what's going to happen, what we said. They've been hiding it, but they're going to have, they'll call it housing bubble, but what it really means is the real estate, because we got to remember part of the operations.
going back to what happened in 2008, what appeared to
2008
was that
is grade school to what's happening right now.
So with the buy-in, they kind of thought, "Oh, we fixed it," but they didn't. They
What they've
they
been
just
doing is
delayed and
buying.
hit it,
They've been
time.
buying time.
Yeah.
Now, conscious people, that's been giving them time to adjust their lives, right?
Mhm.
Now, remember I told you again, I was saying people should pay attention when Warren Buffett starts selling all his stock in Berkshire Hathaway, and then they started the U.S. corporation operations, and the congressmen and all them were increasing their investment in BlackRock. So BlackRock is hiding U.S. operations.
It's the cover for them.
It's a cover. Now, once you understand, and what I'm saying, Dr. J, when you understand what's going on, you don't look at the things are there for people to see, but you don't see them the way that people are trained to look at them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can try to help people to put them on guard, but only they can chart their destiny, if you get the point. And of course, their training, they're getting out of it now. Looking for a savior is a false paradigm. However, people that are still in that venue or in that mentality will be the easiest to be mowed of the grass, if you get the point. Now, of course, that's in your security page. And then people are still arguing the morality of it all, or the lack of morality of it all. And as soon as they make that argument, you know they don't know the politics, right? Because they don't really believe that Caetera Divina is operative.
And then how many don't even realize that what's happening in the music world and so forth?
Same thing.
It's in it too.
It's totally connected.
Connected.
It's not even a separate. It is totally. Give an example. Like people may have their view of the sacrifice.
Yeah.
The care sacrifice that's being made right now. The care sacrifice, the Bohemian burning is right now. Who's on the altar being politically burned? P. Diddy. Right?
Look at, there's a movie called Conversation with the Devil that's out there. And
it is.
There's a movie called Conversation with the Devil. I don't know if anybody has seen it. And it's about a guy, and I'm not going to talk about it in depth, but it's about a guy, like a talk show host, that went to Bohemian Grove on a regular. And he was around the time of supposedly Johnny Carson. He was trying to, vie for,
Interesting.
Yeah. But he had to make he made a sacrifice. And it was a person, that eventually when but y'all check that out if you have it on it's called The Conversation with the Devil.
That's interesting, Dr. J.
No, late night with the devil, late night conversation.
Yeah, but look at that. Yeah. Look at that's just another method or another angle that they always tell.
They tell them
now. Do you know what you're looking at? If you get the point.
Yeah.
And a lot of things that they present as fictional entertainment are really telling the people the truth.
The truth, yeah.
Now, in the future, right, when the people say, "Oh, y'all tricked us and y'all didn't tell us," and he said, "Well, we did. We called. You followed." Because the people still going to be charged with making contract, right? So if they code and tell you, and then the people charge them with the deception, their retort will be, "We called you, you followed." In other words, you agreed, you consented. Now, so you put the different sentences in contract law together, and because the words are different, people think the subject is different. No, same subject. What? You consent, right? And so they'll look at it in the code as the devils or the Satan saying, "I just called, you followed, or you answered, you retorted," right? Because people will try to blame their mistake on the devil as a scapegoat type thing. And that's what the call is, just like the allegorical story will say, when quote unquote the God makes judgment, right? And they start recognizing the prosecutor is the devil. What the hell he doing up there next to the throne of God? Wait, that's the devil. That's the opposite. Wait a minute, what the hell? Right? They're getting closer now. They're talking about, that bike Niella had that nice bike. Yeah. Yeah, I rode that bike and everything when she went around and everything. Yeah, devil made me do it. And we get up there, right, and then we talking and everybody in line, this allegorical story, and we get closer. Wait a minute, guy looks familiar. What the hell he doing sitting next to the throne of God? How the devil's the prosecutor? He made me do it, God. He went in it and I was biking that. And then he said, all I did was call. You followed the prosecutor. Right?
Right.
And then, so the general story, they'll put it in different words, is that all things are for the glory of God, even the devil type thing. That's what the implication is. But the real deal is dealing with laws of the universe that is in place, cause and effect, reciprocity. Right. It does not recognize personal station. At what time you didn't understand this, that you're responsible because all of you are gods. You just been negating your own responsibility, pretending that you're innocent, and you fell for the game of doing all kind of shit and thinking that you put a tithe up on the altar and burn an altar to Satan, and then you off the hook, and then you're going to sacrifice Jesus, i.e. the lamb, for your sin. Well, you're going to pay up, because that's really what that's saying.
Yeah.
But again, because those are allegorical stories, if you get the point. However, they're talking about moral principles that are rooted in nature, not in what you believe or what you don't believe. Although people take the mind control side, they get caught in the imagery, and that allows the dogma operations to go on. So that particular part, etc. When you understand even the Inquisition against the Moors, you understand the politics today, and you understand why so many people are triggered as soon as you bring up Moorish. All you got to do is say Moorish, and they get triggered, right? Why? Because they know if you know that, you probably know more. Now, so they have to kind of focus on you because they got to put you back in the grave. The coat of many colors, colored people, they got to put you back in the hole. See, all these are allegorical stories actually telling you the human condition. Has nothing to do with beliefs, the way that people are looking at them, if you get the point. But yet, at the same time, even though the hybrid Europeans tampered with the books, right? And then remove, as an example, the book of the infants, the book of Mary, Enoch, 7 books of Musa, etc., things like that would change the whole paradigm. So people won't recognize that the outsiders is getting ready to show their faces, if you get the point. Because it's as far as the people is concerned, that's just some anomaly that's sideline discussions. What people will be calling UFOs and unidentified flying objects and things like that, right? And it's all related. And see, so the hybrids know that their time is up, right? So they're doing things, they're accelerating their unum sanctum operations to reduce the blowback that they know is coming. And it's not far in the future. We're already in the cycle. So the advantage that people have that really understand the inter-Caetera operations don't invest in the system knowing that they're going to be underwater. But the temptation, because of the material mentality, is people keep trying to make this quote unquote what they think is the functional system work for them. And that energy is actually wasted and should be put to better things. And this is symbolized where Yeshua say, give up all your stuff and follow me type thing. What it really means is simplify your life, because the shit's coming down. And if you ain't paid attention to what's up, you're going to get caught in the rubble. That's all that means. That's all that means. Not dealing with a real person in the sense that the people keep thinking. He's telling you these signs are there for you. And the signs will be what? Cosmological. What's it? These signs are left for you, sun, the moon, and stars. So he's giving you keys, right? And so when you recognize enter Caetera Divina, you know not to get caught in the trap because they're going to be doing things to you. Look over here. Kamala, man, Trump said this. And you know he's a felon and didn't even go to jail. And you know, and they got records over here with them tampering with the election in Georgia. And then the Chinese did this to you. And then they're selling the Chrysler building. Oh, that's terrible. And then they're laying off 2,800 people from Stellantis. Oh, we didn't know. Oh, they're getting ready to lay off 2,600 people from GM too. Whoa. Ford CEO is trying to get back into India. They had closed the plants. He's trying to get back into India so that they don't go absolute broke. In other words, recognize all these signals are that it's over. Not in the sense that people, not because nothing's totally over. You know, you're going into another phase. Now, so the people who are caught up in this, that's out there, because remember, they put the debt out there so they can come for a pound of flesh. Right. So anyone that goes into debt with them, they're coming at you. And then they tie one contract to other contracts so they can take everything from you. You notice how, like for instance, like say a person who say owns two houses over there, right? As an example, in their mind, you know, with their deeds, right?
Right.
So they sell these in their mind, sell these two houses, and then they go buy one in the greater part of Delaware that costs a couple million, blah 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 blah, and then they take out a mortgage. Now they didn't gave up these two birds in the bush over here.
Mm-hmm. Two birds in the hand.
In the hand for the bush over here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, and so that's gone, right? That's going out of their control, right? Then what they're going to do, because no one's because remember the system works, but they need it's like any other Ponzi scheme. They need someone to continue to buy into the system. So they have a couple of vassal states, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what are the vassal states? Japan, a vassal state. And even though they're closer allies, right? Germany and France, right? Main ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you got to put all that together and deal with the Belfort operations, right? 75, 80 to 80 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
The dividing, right? Now, then you got to look at the Manchurian families that's pulling all of their gold back, right? Then you see Germany call for their gold, but they dropped them buildings and stole it, right? Mm-hmm. Nevertheless, Germany didn't get their gold back, right?
That's right.
Hold on. Now, what would one understand when you're looking at what from 65 in the area of 65, 66, 67 in that area, when Charles de Gaulle sent them warships there to New York Harbor with U.S. Treasury bonds and U.S. dollars and commanded their gold. Of course, they did the attempted assassination on him. They made a movie, Day of the Jackal. Right now, look what's happening right now. How many people are looking at Carlos Tavares right now? He's the one who's running Stellantis. That includes their portfolio, Dodge and Chrysler, which all this hoopla and Jeep and Ram that's going on right now. And then you see Walter P. Chrysler's great grandson right now trying to get people together here to fund to buy some control back into Chrysler, right? They're moving Ram operations to Canada and moving other operations to Mexico, right? Then BYD sent operatives over to look at the Chrysler building. and they just laid off another 100 people just before Christmas, right? Ford trying to make deals, trying to get back into India, trying to get back in, because if he don't, Ford's going bankrupt. Now, so Stellantis is now they're hit with suits from their stockholders.
Who is Stellantis?
Stellantis is the name of the corporate operations in France that owns the merger of FCA, that owns the merger of Sibelius.
None of these names are.
No, but I'm just a corporate entity that owns Chrysler Corporation. All been merged. That Mercedes Corporation gave up in around the 78, 79, blah, 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 that merger that they made. And them bodies, them underpinnings that make up the popular cars right now, the Dodge Charger, Challengers, Hellcats, and all that kind of stuff, that's overpriced for the average person now, that actually left their market. Now they got all these cars sitting all over the place in the country. Then you have your big car dealers that are dropping their contracts, and then with their stipulations, I think it's in Georgia, I don't know if it's Georgia or North Carolina, they're being forced to buy the cars back, and they're hiding all this. The stuff is crashing. They're not going to be able to hide this no more. Japan dumped their treasury bonds. China's been dumping their treasury bonds. They created a new system of trade to counter Swiss. And all of this is tied to Caetera-Operations that's been running this operations economically weaponized around the world. It's all related, is what I'm saying. So what does that mean for us? That means for anyone who's invested in the system, they're going to be sacrificed first, because we're not on the inner circle. Are we clear? Mm-hmm. Now, understanding the political operations, when Warren Buffett in his last year been dumping stock, you know what that's telling you something. That's a chess move. So Berkshire Hathaway is one of your largest real estate operations in America. So if he's dumping stock, what does that tell anybody that understands that the housing bubble is burst already? They're just not announcing it, and they're not, letting the people know that the dam has already broken. That's what I was saying last year when you told me what you were saying, and I was saying that they're underwater. Uh-huh. They just don't know that they're underwater.
Right.
That's what I was talking about. But because you're looking, even those things are to take place, you're looking at it ethereally, because you're looking at the chess moves. So if you're looking at the chess moves, you can see it coming. It doesn't have to be at this moment. No different than you're looking at a cloud, and then they get darker and darker, and then you start hearing a subtle rumble before you hear hard rumble, and you say, oh, it's getting ready to rain. Same thing. But in conjunction with that, and in support of that, I wanted to reemphasize that the people that are waking up now need to understand that Caetera Divina is operative right now, and they should study that while looking at the political operations, so that they can clear their head and make better judgments on moves that they make personally to survive what's here already and what's coming sequentially. It's sort of like bringing people to pay attention to things that you know that they haven't been paying attention to. Because remember, they're going to make sure that you have something to think about. They never leave the people alone. Keep that in mind. So they're going to always intrude and give you something to think about or to be distracted about. Why? Because they must protect the order.
Hmm.
Their political problem is keeping the order operative while keeping the people asleep. In other words, they're getting the juggling. The juggling is becoming difficult for them, if you get the point. And when it does, they have a tendency to do desperate things, and usually it's hurting people. You gotta know how they operate.
Hmm.
And so people who don't understand what they're dealing with have a tendency not to really put their guard up and to participate in the system when they really shouldn't. Because in our mind, we keep looking for normality, what we assume to be normality, and stability, both of which are disallowed.
Mhm.
But the art of covering up that disallowance has lost its sting because they've lost the power that they've controlled through the treasury bonds. And people don't look at, in other words, people are not looking at, as an example, Japan selling those bonds in this last month as having anything to do with what's getting ready to happen to here with the people here. And this is why the geopolitics is so important. And this is also why we talk these things, to help the people that are becoming active and conscious to protect themselves, because we can't protect them. They have to protect themselves. But they also have to get with people of intelligence and wherever they are and start getting dealing with the real political realities. Because remember, all of the politicians, while they have us talking about their political parties, they're having meetings on the bullets because they are operative, never were not operative, meaning they're circling wagons politically. And the people who think that they're attached to this, not unlike a merry-go-round that's speeded up, these people are going to be slung off. And to their mind, they're trying to be in alliance with, their political allegiance, and they're going to be sacrificed. And back to what you were talking about, with the human trafficking industry, that's called the music industry. The human trafficking industry that's called the music industry is collapsing. They can't control the narrative anymore. So how do you know how, like, people used to look for a music artist career?
Mm-hmm.
Now you can look at it as no different than a 9 to 5, and that's what it will be. It's a 9 to 5, and they will not be producing albums. They'll be producing singles. Because of the streaming operations, there's no way that you can, get rich anymore like they used to do in the music industry with albums. So you will not see them producing albums. They may, but you'll see them doing singles. Why? Because even those are tied to bond systems, to the treasury systems.
Excuse me, when you were in the music industry, did you see any, now that we're seeing all this stuff coming out, did you, looking back, did you see the manipulations, because you told me about one thing where they was trying to connect you with somebody,
Mhm.
and did you see any?
That's what I saw. The other thing, in other words, what all this other stuff, to be honest with you, I was not aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
What I saw that while I got out, right, was, one, I was married, and they kept trying to hook me up with different singers,
Mm-hmm.
right, and I wouldn't play, and they kept pushing, right, and then trying to expose me to
say that would be a good look if you and this one,
yeah, and I felt that they were disrespecting me being married.
Mm-hmm.
I took it personal, right? Then the other thing is, I was before they rearranged the stores on Federal Street in Camden, I was walking down the street near Grant's. It used to be a store called Grant's.
I remember.
and of course from Lick Brothers. And I was just listening to music and said, wait a minute, that sounds familiar. That was my song. So Executive Suite was one of their first records, right? Now keep in mind, we're all friends and everything. You know, me, Beasley, Jennifer, who's in my family now, you know, and Jenny, she sang with the Ebonies, right? And we were all, you know, friends up in North Camden. Beasley, Jingles, Booty.
But what
James.
happened?
So I went to one of the studios, and I won't name it because it's personal, you know. One of the studios, because remember, Kenny and them had one studio up on Girard Avenue.
I don't know nothing about all that. But
Kenny Gamble.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, because remember, they're all hooked up.
Right. But
right now, so there's another studio, subdivisional studios that have connected with the larger studios.
Right.
Right. Now, so remember when I sang with Sonny Miller's band, Teddy Pendergrass was our drummer. We used to pick him up in Pennsville, New Jersey. Then, of course, he played drummer with Harold Melvin, and he also sang with them. Yeah. That's a whole story too. But what I recognized immediately, now when I went up to see Russell and them at the studio up on Westfield Avenue, and say, why didn't you all know? You know, why didn't you tell me that Executive Suite was going to cut that record? And then I put on the desk, here's my Form C. And I said, I don't care. I'm glad. However, you all assumed that I didn't have copyright. I'm not a dummy. I understand how things work. Here's my Form C. Now, and you all had the nerve to put my name on the record, you know, as a writer, and also this other guy's name, who's also one of the studio executives' son, who had nothing to do with the production. Nobody's there's robbing me.
But to get
now,
something to
that's why I left.
So, but you didn't see you didn't see that part of it. But it other
than them keep trying to hook me up with women, which I wouldn't play, didn't fare well with them.
Wow.
But their persistence, you know, to me, naive, whatever. To me, that was corrupt.
Right.
But I didn't see all this other stuff. Right. I'm being honest. I didn't.
No, I believe you. I just wanted.
I didn't see none of this other stuff.
Because we're running out of time, y'all.
But I recognize that they were that here I'm getting ready to get robbed, like they did Billy and all the rest of them, and I'm going to be another number, and I wasn't playing.
Well, that's good.
Plus the fact that was upsetting my wife anyway. You know that I was out there singing because she wasn't secure with that. And so that's why I left the industry.
So we got some books. You know, I always try to make sure a couple things. Y'all. First thing we want you to know is that we next Friday is our in person civics class, and so we want to make sure that if you can, that you can come out next Friday, September 27th, 7 p.m. to the House of Reawakening Minds. And Grand Sheik, let's talk a little bit about so I'm gonna hold this up here just for a minute so they can, they need to take a shot of that or whatever. We have an amazing instructor and his consort that come from the DMV area, from DC. And they normally come every fourth Friday. And if anybody is interested in private lives, matter of fact, we're doing it. We enjoy and respect their teaching so much that when we do our conference next year, we're basically going to have like a 2-day teaching. I mean, intensive called Private Lives, a how-to intensive. But if you want to get a preview of that, to get started, and even especially if you are in the DMV area too, but we don't care where you are. But if you want to get a preview of that on the 4 Fridays in person at House of Reawakening Minds, Grand Sheik presents. I may say a few things, but we also have the brother we call Teach. and his consort, Lady J, who bring a phenomenal a presentation with regard to living private
to help the people. Now, keep in mind, Dr. J.
Yes.
And this, because this is basically.
So we want you to come out Friday if you can.
Because of the cycle we're in right now, and because they're doing estate liquidations, right? They'll call it the house bubble. They'll call it the housing bubble, right? And this is for many of you who are who will find, not whether you will or not, and it has nothing to put it this way. Whether you think that you're caught up in your so-called house payments or not, they're calling the debts and they're liquidating people's estates, and Teach will be able to help them because you're going to have to lock down your estates. In other words, like this, it's not that we haven't been telling these people this for years. That's not the issue. Is that it's sort of like the Europeans have always been liquidating the people's estates at a steady rate. That was to protect the realtors' operations that all the politicians have investment in. Although the masses of the people think that they're separate. The congressmen, senators, and the politicians have stock investments in the realtors. That's why you see them always legislating things relative to the realtors. And then the taxes, that's where they get a lot of their finance from, the people, that the people didn't know that the people were being robbed. Because the nation stopped buying U.S. Treasury bonds, it can't be hidden. So they're going to be spinning the narrative as people are losing their homes. Are we clear? People that are once secure are going to be losing their homes. Now, it's going to be so many foreclosures that they're really not going to be executing writs of execution. The writs of executions are the selling of the trusts, and the common people will be called them foreclosures. There's millions of them that are just not being activated because they don't want what they call realized losses on their books. However, because nations are not buying U.S. Treasury bonds, they can't hide it anymore. Are we clear? And so by virtue of that, breaks the system. They've been controlling it for the last 10 years or so, since 2007 actually. But it's they've lost control. Put it this way, as long as the nations were buying U.S. Treasury bonds, they could keep the Ponzi scheme going. Now that they stopped buying the bonds, and they did quantitative easing a couple times, and they're going to do it again. So what's happened is this was happening. The corporate commercial paper bond systems of what they refer to as the U.S. dollar is going to get stronger and stronger and rise and rise and rise and rise. It's not going to pop. It's going to rise and rise and rise and rise and disappear. Now, so it's, like people are looking for it to fall with the BRICS operations and stuff like that. It's going to be actually the opposite. So people are going to be calling for more of them to satisfy the contracts that are existing, that were created with the petrodollar. So it's going to give the appearance that it's getting stronger when it actually rising, and it's going to rise to the point it disappears. At that point, they can't hide it. So they're going to, which they're doing right now, accelerate, and even though it's going to seem totally irrational, create wars, even to the point of being threatened with nuclear, to hide their criminality. And people not really paying attention don't understand how serious this is, because that's where we're at right now. And all of it is into Caetera Divina. And being aware of it, you're going to look at what they do differently, because they're not operating with the mentality that they're promoting to the masses. They're not. And it's dangerous to be distracted with any other controlled narrative. Look at it, but don't be distracted, because it's not what's going on.
So what we're gonna do? We're
Go
not
ahead.
gonna go any further with that, but I appreciate it because you can go to another teaching. Like I try to do it each time we come together, y'all. Is
Go
give
ahead.
you some books
Give them something.
that you can that I'm highly recommending. We have this one. It's called "Give Yourself Credit," by David E. Robinson. Money doesn't grow on trees. A very good book. Shows you how to do accept it for value and all that stuff in there. Asset Protection, also by
Turn it.
Asset Protection. Let me bring it up.
Yeah.
Asset Protection by David E. Robinson, or David Robinson rather. Commercial Law Applied: Learn to Play the Game by David Robinson. Hopefully you can see that. Some new books. And the last one I wanted to share with you is Rich Man, Poor Bank by Mark J. Kwan and with Jeff Cohen. It's kind of hard to see, but it's Rich Man, Poor Bank, Mark J. Kwan. Some books you might want to, let me make sure. Can you see that? There you go.
Rich Man, Poor Bank.
Rich Man, Poor Bank.
By Kwan, yeah. Mark J. Kwan.
Mark J. Kwan. Just one.
Now, listen, interjected. For those who understand the them buying time with the liquidation of estates is one of the reasons why they opened up the borders, so that they can divert your attention to the big cities like Chicago. I'm just giving you an example, going broke when they can't hide it anymore, so they can blame it on immigration and immigrants to get you fighting them, not recognizing that that's a weapon to cover up inter-Caetera operations that are being interrupted by Asia or the uniting of Asia. And that's where you see the nations of Africa, particularly when South Africa charged the Khazarians with genocide. And then they went to their minions of their trustees that you know as U.S. Congress, etc., to get them to intimidate South Africa and their leaders to rescind the genocide charge off the Khazarians, which is going on right now. And so, meanwhile, while they're going into the realized losses with the banking systems, they're going to come at the smallest people, or what you call everyday people, to steal their estates. And so, a lot of what Teach is going to be sharing with them Friday is important for those who will listen, to kind of put some, you're not going to cure it immediately, but you will not necessarily be one of the ones that find yourself on the curb all of a sudden in a tent. You know, like you're doing good you got 2 cars in the driveway, you think you're secure, and a month and a half find yourself on the curb trying to buy a tent.
Listen, on that note, I got a call last week from a couple that they felt like they had the allodial rights and titles to their property. They were fighting the county, whatever the magistrate about it. They came to their domicile, and I don't know what part of the day it was, put them out of their house, had 3 dumpsters out there when they came bursting in the house, took everything they had, threw it in dumpsters, and hooked the dumpsters away. So stole all of their belongings and put them out. They didn't even give them an opportunity to take their stuff. They had 3 dumpsters, which they removed.
That's war right now. That's now what they did was some other building, some other truck. That's what they did years ago to Delilah. And then later sent her
a letter to say
that she has right of claim.
Right.
But this is back to, not only are they de facto, but the deal of it is what you just told me is part of the desperation that I'm telling you about. Now, understand that they have millions, a couple of millions on waiting on hold that are already in the state of writ of execution. They're already in the state of writ of, but they have not, because they're in this the situation that they're in is that if they execute the writs, that are already in place right now, right? They themselves will accelerate the system crashing. It's like a damned if you, they're caught in a damned if you do, damned if you don't. However, if they don't, they go down. And so they're going to sacrifice what you call everyday person first. One of your signals is you see all these hedge fund managers trying to dump these commercial buildings for up to 80% off. Look on your phone, on your computers. Hedge fund managers dumping commercial buildings all over the US and Canada for up to 80% off.
They say the Canadians are no longer paying their bills or something. I just heard.
It's on.
They stopped.
It's on.
That's what I heard.
I'm telling you, it's on. They're just not executing.
Yeah.
You have all over the land people that have bought new cars in the last year or two that haven't made alleged payments in 7 months, and they have not executed the loan callbacks because they don't want it on the record. It will accelerate. Because remember how this thing ties together. It's very important. When the nation stopped buying U.S. Treasury bonds, the Ponzi scheme broke. You need to understand the relationship. So the unum sanctum operations that the Pope promised to end with the motu proprio, which you all know that they didn't. Somewhat, they did their appearances type thing. And then, of course, you already know when Barack H. Obama dropped the mic, that was also a signal. All the things that you were seeing signaled during the Obama administration are manifesting right now. This is why, let me show you another way for people to understand the operations, Dr. G.
Mm-hmm.
How many people never paid attention to the fact that there was no primary? There was no primary. And Joseph Biden is still a sitting president. And they put Kamala Harris in debate, absent of a primary, for the election, and they did not execute Amendment 25. Pay attention to those. Anybody that knows a political structure knows that that's a violation, but they know that most of the people aren't savvy constitutionally, that there's actually a coup. How many people don't recognize right now that that was a coup? I'm not saying support Biden. I'm saying, but how many people don't recognize that's an obvious coup? How many people you hear talking about that was a coup? Anybody that knows politics knows it was a coup. But I'm only saying that to demonstrate or to share with you how naive people are about the political platform, that they don't know the politics, and how backwards we actually are, and how people really take us for granted, knowing that we are really inadequate, politically inadequate, and it's going to come back to bite us hard. And that's not a statement against Kamala. Do you understand? I'm making that very clear. People who know politics know that for Kamala to be in Philadelphia in a debate with Donald Trump running for president, and there was no primary and no execution of Amendment 25 in relationship to Joseph Biden, constitutes a coup.
He just took over. Where is he?
No, it's not that. The deal of it is he can't be a sitting president and then not be in that debate without a primary taking place that allows the people, even though we know it's fictional, if you get it, allowing the people to actually choose between candidates before this debate. And even as people are waking up, they know that some people understand the real politics, which is why this last one they didn't even have an audience. And the people still ain't caught on that it's a coup. That's not a support, and I'm not even condemning. I'm just pointing out things where people don't know what they're dealing with. Another reason why I'm bringing this up.
Okay. Well, listen, we gonna go because we love you all. We do. We
Yes.
appreciate this time that you all take out to be tune in with us. Like you said, anybody that can come out next Tuesday. Next Tuesday. What is about Tuesday? Anybody that can come out next Friday to the House of Reawakening Minds, you will not be disappointed. I know one brother reached out from Texas and said he's flying in. People come from all over for that. And we're not going to have a large convention event until the first week of June 2025. So it's these 4 Friday events when you get the opportunity to meet with Grand Sheik and myself, and and like I said, we have Teach and Lady J being a part of that. So you'll come away with a lot of knowledge and insight.
Please bring a notebook.
Yes.
Now, we have a casual conversation, but please read between the lines of things that we've said, because we're telling you things without directly saying certain things, so that we could try to get some things through to you, because they would have blanked the page. They would have literally blanked the screen if I said what I really wanted to say.
Right. So,
but I'm hopeful that those of you who are paying attention can read between the lines, and then do a little research, and then do some action with yourself and your families.
Yes, absolutely.
Not going to do some actions with yourself and your families while you have a little time to act.
Okay.
Because in a week or two, you'll understand what I'm telling you. You ain't got to wait till next month. A week or two. And remember, I just said that, a week or two.
Stuff is happening really fast.
Yes.
Really fast. So.
Yes.
All right, y'all. We love you. We out of here.
Islam.
Assalamu
alaikum. Shalom. Vadimekum. Bon appetit.
The deeper and deeper I go, I find what it is I should know. 'Cause it's just a matter of time that you'll reawaken your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what is true. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening minds. Come to know and find out what is truth, yes. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening minds.